Great. Well, Vinnie, thank you very much for having me today. So Paul Smith, I'm the Global Industry Principal in the Consumer Products Industry Business Unit, and I focus and specialize on our solutions for customer experience. And the Consumer Products IBU is part of the industries team within SAP. So obviously one of the ways we differentiate is we go to market with industry-specific solutions, and we help core and key industries become best run enterprises. And consumer products is, alongside retail, one of our two biggest industries. So yeah, but that's me. Yeah, I cover CX. And today I kind of wanted to go through where we are with direct to consumer. And direct to consumer from an industry trend perspective, but what SAP is doing with direct to consumer as well. And we can start with some insightful numbers. Because this has been a world that has been moving in this direction over the past, well, 2 decades, really. It's accelerated in the past decade, and then the pandemic has had a profound impact on the world of D2C. For the evidence we see internally within SAP is we get to see the total number of orders that go through our commerce cloud. 2020 versus 2019, that doubled. And we know that the growth rate of direct to consumer in consumer products in North America, that's in 2020 grew at 46%, and it's on track for being similar again this year.
Is it direct to consumer, or is it through an intermediary? So, obviously we're seeing a lot of grocers go through Instacart. Yeah. We're seeing telemedicine go through, some intermediary. Merchants are going through Shopify. So what are you finding? Are you finding a Procter & Gamble or Pepsi can go direct to consumer, or they're still having to navigate?
So we're finding that 46% is for kind of like pure play D2C, but obviously that there's other elements at play as well. So you're right, it's people doing D2C through others, and people doing D2C through marketplaces and other forms of aggregation as well. And all of these are providing different challenges for CP companies. So first of all, the top level challenge of D2C is a CP company has been optimized to operate like a B2B business for the last 3, 4, 5 decades. So they're designed for shipping pallets at scale on trucks, and they're not used to talking to consumers directly. So to graft the D2C DNA into a CPG company is a profound change, because it means you've got to be able to sell in single units. You've got to be able to bundle that together into a cost-effective proposition. And that proposition has got to resonate with consumers to make it worthwhile them buying it directly from you, rather than getting it via Instacart or via the e-commerce operations of grocers, or getting it from Amazon or other marketplaces as well. So, but it also means, as well as being able to set up the logistics and the fulfillment capability, you've got to have that marketing muscle for being able to launch a proposition, launch products, engage consumers, acquire consumers, and then retain them as well. So there's multiple challenges in here. And I tend to put these things into 5 buckets, which I'm going to very quickly get to. The other thing on the numbers is, we're seeing profound changes in where money is being spent in terms of how to reach consumers. Facebook's ad revenue shot up 22% last year because of the pandemic. Everybody cancelled out-of-home advertising. Everybody moved even more ad spend out of kind of physical and traditional media into digital. And some of that is because it's more attributable. It's easier to re-engage and reconnect with consumers in digital channels than it is necessarily in physical ones. You're more observable, even with the death of cookies and with increased privacy legislation through Apple and mobile phones. But we're starting to see the rise of people searching for products in novel ways, like searching for them on social. So last year was probably the tipping point and turning year for social commerce. More people having products sold on TikTok and on Instagram and on Facebook. And previously, people searching for products would go to Amazon, they'd go to Google. Now they're starting to look for them in social channels as well. And some of this, when I talk to CP companies, I said, think about the number of hours that a customer is in a physical store and how much time they spend browsing shelves. And think about that number. And then realize that people spend nearly 1,000 hours a year on a mobile device. Now that's, total time spent in all forms of mobile device usage. It's in apps, it's for entertainment, it's games, it's other forms of media. but a big proportion of that is spent in social, it's spent in spaces where you could be getting your product and proposition in front of the consumer. There is more opportunity in the digital shelf space to some extent than there is in the physical shelf space. So, and we see these trends then impacting growth of D2C, the growth of the marketplaces, and we should take a nod to the fact that the biggest e-commerce channel, particularly in North America, is Amazon, right? Amazon's 9 times the size of Walmart in terms of its total transacted e-commerce revenue. So there's some big players in the marketplace here that need to be considered in terms of your strategy for D2C. Now, I'm particularly strongly of the opinion that pure play D2C is absolutely essential for CPG companies, but it needs to work hand in glove with your strategy for marketplaces as well, which is more of a B2B2C strategy. The difference being is with marketplace and selling through those, the marketplace owns the consumer relationship. They own the consent, they own the relationship. Anybody selling there doesn't have kind of like the wealth of insight and the depth of information that you get where you do it through your own D2C proposition. And you don't have the right to easily remarket, retarget, or reappeal to those consumers. And kind of, we have to remember the world of CPG is quite complicated in this space. CPG companies access consumers through multiple routes to market, through retailers, physical stores, their small format stores, their e-commerce. They access CPG companies, reach people through food service, through cafes, bars, restaurants, HoReCa, through corporate trade, through independent stores, mom and pop stores, but increasingly where all the growth is marketplaces and direct to consumer. The other routes, last year most CP companies did pretty well because everybody got pandemic pantries, grew somewhere between 1%, and the outliers were 6%, most people were the 3 to 4% range, but still in that background, D2C grew 46%. And if I kind of put D2C into 5 buckets of, if you're getting into D2C, there are 5 key challenges you've got to solve. And it goes from proposition through marketing and customer acquisition and customer retention, establishing a direct sales channel, solving fulfillment and post-purchase, and dealing with analytics and insights, which informs all of the other 4 pillars. Now, your proposition's got to be right. It's got to work at the right price point. You've got to have the right values of the product. You've got to bundle products together in the right way. You've got to be sustainable. You've got to be ethical. And we're making investments in some of our industry cloud solutions, for example, around kind of like responsible design and production to help people on that proposition side. And some of what we do in our broader portfolio.
Well, I would think the toughest thing for them, given that they're not used to, like you say, selling in small batches, would be fulfillment. Yes. What are you finding is the most difficult part for that?
So, well, the 2 biggest areas of cost getting into D2C is fulfillment and customer acquisition. So fulfillment is often the hardest one to crack because CP companies, all of their production is designed for just-in-time shipment. So the amount of storage space at the end of manufacturing facility is tiny, and it's intended to go on a carrier line and be out to a distributor or a retailer within at most a couple of hours. So putting in a retail scale pick, pack and ship operation that operates in inches or small bundles and individual consumer consignments isn't an option. So what this means is most CP companies today are using 3PLs to do this. So they're finding the D2C specialist 3PLs that have thrived under the D2C digital natives, and now they're increasingly reliant on them to run that pick, pack and ship operation for them. Some of them are even using pick, pack and ship operations from the marketplaces to do this as well. So even if they sell their own products.
From a cost perspective, those 3PLs have nowhere near the scale of a Amazon or a Shopify, right?
No, and that's one of the big challenges here is competing against Amazon. I mean, Amazon in terms of DCs and footprint for distribution of products, just in North America, I mean, you're talking over 200 sites. Most 3PLs would only scale to a fraction of that. So we're looking at kind of what we do with our logistic business network to help people be able to operate across multiple 3PLs at scale, but also still offer a consistent customer experience. And actually, we've been working with some of our industry cloud partners from SAP IO, like Parcel Lab and Parcel Perform, to help unify all of the connections into 3PLs. Because every 3PL's got its own data model, it's got its own event model. They all offer slightly different services. And as soon as you start wanting to integrate more than one or two of those, when you get into the 10s or 20s, it becomes a headache. So
are you also bringing in, I would think you would need to bring in some robotic partners. And I mean, the scale of automation, I've been to an Amazon distribution center, just the scale of automation is just mind-boggling.
Yes, yeah, that's it. Because the key challenge in consumer products in the fulfillment piece is driving down the cost of fulfillment, making sure that you meet the customer promise in terms of the delivery time and time scale, and simultaneously protect all of the stock that you've still got for the rest of your normal B2B business. What that means is they are looking for those 3PLs that are as highly automated as possible, the ones where they can still ship pallets and trucks to in their normal B2B model that they're optimized for, but then still have really high speed of turnaround. So there's specific subsets of 3PLs that particularly appeal in this space. It gets more complicated depending on the product as well. I mean, if you're doing D2C for something like premium chocolate, you've got to do temperature controlled delivery as well, and other elements of cold chain. So predominantly, most people do D2C in simpler to handle units and packages. Goes particularly well with cosmetics, goes well with some kind of like personal care, bits of durables, but we're seeing it growing significantly in beverage as well. We're seeing it growing significantly in snacks and some elements of prepared foods. So, but also pet food, coffee, tea, are particularly big growth areas across our customer base in D2C. So, but solving that fulfillment challenge, and some of the other innovations we're doing in Industry Cloud that I'm kind of heading towards is we're building a central order management capability within SAP Order Management, one of our Industry Cloud innovations, that is intended to take orders from an e-commerce endpoint. So it can be our technology, or it could be Shopify, it could be Magento, or it could be a marketplace. Bring all of those D2C orders in one place, and then intelligently choose what is the appropriate inventory in an optimized location to use to actually fulfill those orders. And having that work across potentially even multiple ERPs as well. So is one of the things that we're innovating on in our Industry Cloud. So, I mean, if I pull all those challenges together, you know, the proposition challenge becomes it's right product, right channel, right price, reducing NPI risk and cost. For marketing, it's about acquiring more D2C customers at the right price point. So, I mean, it's about 20, average price of acquiring a consumer is about $20. So doing and bringing innovations like another SAP IO partner we've been working with in this space is a company called Mirchandani, do referral marketing. Referral marketing is the cheapest way of building and growing a D2C consumer base rather than constantly pumping media spend into Facebook and Google to try and acquire more consumers. In direct sales, it's about trying to standardize on scalable platforms across brands and markets as well. In CP companies, they're houses of brands. You see one brand trying an experiment with technology X, one brand trying to experiment with technology Y. You know, I see lots of people rushed to using Shopify in the early days of D2C, and now they've got 30, 40 instances of it. It's all integrated differently or operating differently. It's beginning to cause a headache, especially with the cost model around how fees are charged on kind of like a per transaction basis. So people are now looking at how can we bring all of that more together into a holistic platform that works across brands and markets, but still gives the brand managers and each brand the identity and the control that they need as well. So moving on, I mean, successes we've had in the D2C space through coronavirus. So people like Brakes. So Brakes is a food service business in the UK. And like most food service businesses, when pandemic hit, huge offloading of kind of orders from that were no longer required. I mean, they service schools, hospitals, hotels, other kind of food service organizations. they provide kind of catering quantities of things. And they said, actually, we're going to pivot. We're going to launch a D2C capability so anybody in the UK could place an order with us and we will deliver it to them. Now, they had one big advantage, which is they have their own delivery fleet of trucks. So the fulfillment side, they'd already got nailed. But what they did with us was they'd already invested in our Commerce Cloud in its B2B form, because they were using that to serve their long tail of customers and kind of drive down the cost to serve the long tail. They took that, and because our commerce platform works not just for B2B, it works for B2C and D2C, they were within 7 days able to launch a brand new D2C proposition. What they had to do is add credit card processing, they had to modify the catalog, they had to change the login and sign up process to make it more consumer friendly, and they had to change some of the product assortment that they used. But having done that, they went to market within 7 days and were operating as a D2C business, delivering to any location in the UK. So
what fulfillment functionality are they using from SAP? Your warehouse management or your transportation? Or?
So they're also using warehouse management. I mean, they're an ECC customer at this point, and they've been kind of like long-standing kind of back-end implementation on quite a lot of SAP as well. Hence, you know, they were very close to us for what we did on the commerce side as well. I'd have to double check exactly what specifically else is in there. So yeah, definitely running on ECC.
Okay.
Other things that we've been doing innovatively in this space, so as well as our kind of commerce cloud capability, for the past couple of years, we've been working on a rapid to deploy commerce capability. So we have a tool called Upscale Commerce, and Upscale Commerce is totally cloud native, software as a service, selling engine. It runs with an AI platform underneath it that's always constantly trying to optimize what's presented for profit. But the idea of this is to radically reinvent commerce so that you can build a store in days. Commerce has always been plagued by, it can take, even for experienced players, months to be able to launch a new commerce capability. And in some cases, that's many months. You know, I mean, I used to do a lot of commerce implementations in the history of my career, and you'd be talking 6 to 9 months for a straightforward B2C site. And the pressure now is everybody needs to be able to get to that level of sophisticated selling much more quickly. And Upscale Commerce is our approach at making this much more template driven, but still very flexible. It allows you to import a catalog import in articles, imagery, content, your pricing, and to be able to slot all of that together and do it literally within days. And we've had customers, people like, there's a global CPG player in Italy, for example, that's using this. They started off as an experiment early in coronavirus and said, look, we just want to sell hair care products. It's static inventory. We sell them through hair salons. It's not moving. Let's try and experiment with this as D2C. And they got it up and running in under a month, including connection to Business One and to a 3PL through open APIs, because this product's written API first. And they started selling the hair care products into the Italian market. Then through the whole of the last 12 months, they've been adding new brands into that capability and adding bundles of brands. They're now selling 25 different brands on there. So touching everything from snacks through to personal care products, hygiene products, as well as luxury products, beauty products. And I can go into their site and I can order anything I want from that complete catalog and having it delivered the next day or the day after as well. And they got that up and running in under a month. So, and they found it's very adaptable for them. We've also got people using that same platform for trialing selling luxury chocolates in Chicago, something recently launched by a chocolate customer of ours. But commerce isn't the only story in the world of D2C. I mean, that's what allows you to sell to the consumer. Actually acquiring them in the first place and then retaining them is also a challenge. It's one of the key reasons we acquired MRSys. MRSys is particularly strong for handling complicated D2C consumer engagement cases. It has a lot of digital natives, whether they're cosmetics companies or kind of food, nutrition and protein companies, or whether they're durables companies. People like MRCs because it allows people to pick and set a goal, and then it automatically recommends tactics to people to use. So if you want to push people to make their second purchase, or you want to kind of retain people, or you want to celebrate an anniversary, or you want to cross-sell another part of your portfolio, it's got pre-built D2C engagement tactics actually in the platform. So as well as being useful for acquiring consumers, because it works multi-channel, it works on email, but it can also create audiences for Facebook and Google and Instagram and others. It also allows people to, as well as acquire customers, it's very, very focused on retaining them as well. And so that's kind of like our commerce part of the portfolio, marketing area with MRCs. We've also been innovating in the D2C space with what we're doing with our customer data platform, because with the death of cookies and the need to acquire more consumer data, we've had a march on most people by having acquired Gigya kind of like 4 or 5 years ago for the customer data cloud. The CDP is the next step forward on this, providing people a mechanism for aggregating everything that they know about consumers into one place, which is fundamental for a CP company because people interact with different brands in different regions, different markets. And those brands and regions can have Adobe at the front end in one place. They might be using Magento somewhere, or they might be using our commerce cloud. And rather than keeping that consumer data in that one technology silo, the CDP allows people to bring all of that together to have that complete, holistic 360-degree insight on consumers, but also with consent and privacy built into the core of it as well. There's a particular strength of Gigya, and it's followed through into what we do with the CDP. It's particularly focused on managing that consent. I mentioned the fulfillment challenge earlier about kind of solving the challenges of time, cost, and protection. Where we're heading with this is this idea of, I mentioned it, the order management, customer central order foundation. The idea of this is to capture e-commerce orders or digital orders from any channel, bring them into a central orchestration location that's aware of inventory, different sources, 3PLs, own warehousing, and it will connect with multiple ERPs, because in some cases you've got different ERPs across different divisions, or you might have acquired a D2C business that you also need to find better ways of scaling. And central order is part of our kind of mixture of helping people become more efficient in that space. We're also noting the use of things like S/4HANA Cloud for protecting people's protecting people's existing ERP setup and B2B business. So most CP companies, for example, their ERP is set up to operate with a unit of measure of cases, and all of the customer master data in there is B2B customers. You know, there's a significant amount of change if you want to move that to be more modeled on a retail operation where you operate in niches and you've got individual consumer records in there. Well, actually, we can help people put in things like a 2-tier ERP strategy where you use S/4HANA Cloud to receive the D2C material, maybe that's coming out of the central order capability as well. And that helps protect existing operations while allowing people to scale what they're doing in D2C independently as well. It's applicable for some, not for all. So I realize we're getting very close on time. So the delivery challenge we can help solve with some of our SAP IO partners like Parcel Lab, who already work with like Lidl and Puma in terms of helping people unify and aggregate what they do with connections to multiple carriers. But we're also working, because one of the things I do is I go and help work with SAP IO to find new D2C innovators. We found people like TV Page. TV Page run a video ambassador social commerce storefront business. So if you go to Macy's.com, and to their video channels, they're powered by TV Page. And that is where they've turned their store staff into influencers that are selling to people by video. And they also use external influencers, and they can do live video selling as well. Great way for engaging consumers, great for SEO, really good for acquisition. And it helps bring a human element back into the sales process as well. And we're working with people like Jebbit, who are based in Boston. Jebbit help people capture zero or first-party declared data. So they're working with a lot of CP companies to run kind of almost like BuzzFeed style quizzes in social or on people's sites to help understand people's preferences in particular product areas. Mention me, referral marketing for D2C, very useful for driving down your cost of acquisition of people. And then we've got some real interesting pioneers like AlgoPix we're working with. AlgoPix help people understand their total market demand on marketplaces and what demand for any individual SKU is. So AlgoPix track 1 billion SKUs across Amazon and Channel Advisor accounts, and they can accurately, within 90%, predict what the e-commerce demand is for any SKU and what the price point should be for it as well. And we're also working with a company called Sampler, who help people set up digital product sampling, which is particularly useful for D2C and it's been particularly useful during coronavirus as well. So lots of innovation, and we're tying all of these people into both our commerce capability and into what we do in S4 and into ECC as well. So, but if I distill it all down, I would say the SAP D2C proposition and vision is we help people become more agile and achieve rapid time to value. We help people acquire, engage, and retain new consumers. We give people fulfillment flexibility. We allow them to meet the promise while protecting the existing B2B business as well.
So would it be fair to say several customers are on the journey, but very few are completely there?
And so very few are completely there. Most CP businesses are playing catch up with the digital natives at this stage. So all of those that were quick out the gate, the Dollar Shave Clubs, the Harrys, the Caspers, the Warby Parkers, I mean, a lot of them went to market with a compelling value exchange. So it's like there's a cosmetics company, it's based in the UK and Europe, that MRSys work with, who they have a cosmetics membership scheme. So you have to pay a certain amount to be a member per month, but then you get the right to buy products from them that are the equivalent quality of their branded versions, but they're about a quarter of the price. So they've got membership, they've got subscription, they've got replenishment. They launch products on Facebook. They harvest consumers' insights through social. They play the whole game. So, and it's now a challenge for the L'Oreals and the Estee Lauders of the world to kind of match what they're doing, because they've taken some of the cost element of traditional distribution, say through department stores, out of the mix, and they're passing that saving on. That's quite hard for most CPG companies to sort of radically change their channel strategy. And most of them can't radically change their channel strategy because they'll be kind of delisted by retailers or not used. So channel conflict is always a big issue in this case. So it's kind of like CP companies need to have D2C specific products and propositions really to try and avoid that, the implications of channel conflict.
Good.
So, cool. I hope that was helpful. I mean, apologies we've overrun. I feel
it's a fascinating trend. Maybe we should have you come back in 6 months, maybe 9 months, provide an update.
Absolutely, would love to.
I mean, it sounds like a very fast-moving area. I mean, clearly, if I'm a CPG company, I'd be scared right now, given this evolution, right? So I'm sure they're moving quick.
Yeah, I mean, you only have to look at there's a reason Dollar Shave Club ended up being acquired by Unilever, right? And that is the sheer amount of market share they took in the space of about 3 or 4 years. And then Harry's Razors came along and repeated what Dollar Shave Club did, but twice as fast. And there are some sub-elements and sub-areas of CPG that's more ripe for kind of takeover. And the strategy of most CP companies is they either try and produce their own, they try and repurpose existing products, or they're having to acquire to be able to kind of keep pace and maintain market share. But acquiring actually gives them that D2C playbook. You know, one of the reasons Unilever spent so much money on Dollar Shave Club was to kind of go, all right, how did you do it? It wasn't just a particularly good value proposition and one really good video, although both of those two things actually really did were the rocket fuel that actually propelled them into kind of the mind share that consumers have.
I think the bigger challenge, maybe the brands in the restaurant business aren't as big as a P&G or a Unilever, but I'm seeing with the delivery services, they're starting to look at ghost kitchens. I mean, why do they have to go with a high-priced restaurant if they can give their consumers, similar taste for a fraction of the price, right? So if that starts to happen in CPG, we'll see a lot more. You know, if the consumers say, I don't really care that much for the brand, just give me something good enough, that's when the real turmoil will happen.
Yeah, and that's where, I mean, some of the really big and success stories are happening, not just here, but in places, you know, like China as well. So there's big cosmetic companies like my Perfect Diary in China is absolutely crushing the competition in terms of kind of like Western brands, and it's a pure D2C play. Although they started pure D2C, they're now moving into physical retail as well. So, but Perfect Diary are a good example of doing something that was first of all neutrally branded, then own branded, and then has just dominated because of its ability to reach consumers in ways that other brands haven't been able to.
The other risk is, you know, obviously the digital channels. The younger generation is not as loyal to. I read a Business Week article. Procter & Gamble's brand recognition in the millennials is actually pretty low.
Yes.
So,
yeah. I mean, there's definitely
we are the old farts. We are used to.
Yeah. That's it. I mean, there's different ways in which people discover product, and obviously there are demographic and generational dynamics at play within there as well. So, but it means paying very close attention to it. And I do say, I mean, the thing that's encouraging is I do see a lot of CP companies paying very close attention to kind of going, actually, we know the whole of Gen Z spends a lot of time on TikTok. So we know we needed to make our social commerce capability and our D2C part underneath social commerce be able to work in that space. So,
Paul, this has been great. Thank you.
No, Vinnie, it's an absolute pleasure. So good to meet you as well.